Good afternoon all. Thanks very much for your attendance today. I really appreciate your time. Hopefully we're all going to learn something new today. We're going to cover off obviously around stairs and the applications, design obviously, and some compliance aspects to it. So just to introduce myself, my name's Hines Broomhall and I'm the specification manager here at Monkeytoe. I guess I work alongside the likes of architects, engineers and so on, and working through the design and documentation phase. Toby, you can introduce yourself.
Afternoon everyone, Toby Broomhall's my name. My key focus at Monkeytoe is working with construction companies, builders, end users, factory owners, the likes.
Excellent. So today, I guess we're going to cover off different stair types, their different applications, and hopefully some important design and compliance considerations that we need to think about and work throughout that design phase. We'll cover off at the end to have a bit of a Q&A session. So please, everyone, fire through your questions as they come up on the little Q&A box at the top or bottom of your screen, depends on where that's showing on your screen, and we'll hopefully cover those all off at the end, and if they're applicable, we'll cover them off as we flick through. So I guess the focus today around the stairs will be in particular talking about stairs in that sort of commercial, retail type space, high rise, and then also in the industrial building, industrial plant. So Monkeytoe look after the complete design and engineering process. So that obviously includes the full shop drawings and full engineering producer statements. So whether that's PS1, PS3, PS4, so on.
Which includes the foundation designs, any related connection designs. We'll also provide the engineering design documentation associated with that.
Excellent. So the turnkey package, I guess what we're saying here is we look after the whole thing in-house in effect. So that consultancy compliance aspect, which I get involved in, through to design and engineering, through to manufacturing and installation, looked after again, all in-house. So just a quick step through just how the whole process works. So there's obviously the initial consultation, and whether that's at your office or on site. And from there we can develop a costing and put together some design concepts to discuss. And obviously that moves through to develop design of the stair. And at that point we can discuss lead times and where they need to be at for your particular project. So today we're going to cover off, I guess, the 4 stair types that are outlined in the building code, in those 4 stair types: accessible, common, secondary, private, and service.
So the photo there shows an accessible stair. That particular stair system is at Queenstown Early Learning Centre in Auckland. Couple of points there: buildings must have 1 accessible stair, and they are for people with disabilities, so they need to be suitable for that application.
Sorry, I'm just fixing this up, sharing all our screens. Here we go. Moving on.
So a couple of points there on this stair here, showing at Rolleston School in Christchurch. So with accessible stairs, the width between the handrails needs to be a minimum of 900 millimetres, and the maximum pitch of the stair, 32 degrees. All accessible stairs must have closed risers.
So just to chip in there, someone's asking a question: are we recording this? Yes, we certainly are, and we'll run a poll towards the end where you can chuck your details in and we'll flick you out a recording afterwards, so no problem there. And thanks to those that have just recently joined too. We mentioned at the start, please just fire in your questions throughout, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end to cover off a bunch of those. Thanks. So this particular accessible stair is located at Bayley's house in Queenstown, and it's what I'd call a typical accessible egress stair, giving them a secondary fire escape from their second-storey office area down to their car park below.
One of the attendees have asked, do we manufacture in Australia and New Zealand? The answer to that is yes, we do. We have a manufacturing facility in Melbourne and in Taranaki, New Zealand. Thanks for the questions. Common stairs, the image there is in Tauranga, New Zealand. It's a common stair providing egress and access to an office block. Common stairs are for public use. The width between the handrails is a minimum of 900mm again. The pitch is slightly steeper than accessible. It is 37 degrees, that's the maximum pitch.
So secondary private stairs. So these are generally for private use, and they're intended to provide access to another floor, and this is generally for access to bedrooms, bathrooms or similar. So obviously typically in a residential type area, and Monkeytoe don't get involved in a lot of these type of stairs. Slightly steep pitch there of up to 41 degrees as well.
Service stairs, commonly known as maintenance, or providing infrequent access for maintenance purposes, movement of goods. A typical service stair is not meant to be any less than 600mm wide, and any width over that is obviously all good. Service stairs shown here at a dairy plant in the back end of Kawerau, New Zealand. Maximum pitch of 47 degrees, so obviously can be a lot steeper than any of your other stair types. The stairs shown in these pictures here are manufactured from a lightweight aluminium, which obviously reduces the load on the structure.
So this service stair here is an example. This is located at the Maraetai Dam on the Waikato River. And this particular stair, the dam operator had looked previously at a steel stair. So they asked us to come along, visit site. We reviewed this stair and looked at some options. And I guess a couple of points I just wanted to point out here. Due to the aluminium construction, there are some massive weight savings, and that obviously meant that they could get away with a lot cheaper, faster and smaller crane option. So installation was a lot faster and more efficient process there. It meant also a much lighter and shallower foundation requirements there. So overall cost savings also, and obviously this here included the full shop drawings and producer statements with that stair design.
So as Heinz has covered off, an engineered design, manufactured from aluminium, resulting in weight savings, cost savings, time savings, obviously resulting in a faster install, a cleaner, tidier, start to finish process.
So stiles and stepovers, these are typically designed to the service stair standard, and you commonly see these in the likes of up and over production lines, you know, maybe over pipe work and ducting through ceiling spaces, up and over rooftops, etc.
Typically used a lot in factory applications as a step over a conveyor.
So landings, I'll just cover off a couple of key points around landings really, but minimum landing depth, 900mm long, and then the max flight for accessible and common stairs is 2.5 metres, or for the service and secondary stairs, 4 metres. So that 4 metres works out to be 18 rises per flight.
Balustrade systems, as shown there in aluminium. Obviously required where the areas are frequented by children under 6 years, and the requirement states object of 100 mil must not be able to fit through the balustrade system. So they need to be positioned from 900 mil to 1000 mil above the pitch line of the stair. The balustrade systems which are attached to the stairs are available in mill finish aluminium, or as shown here in this photo at Mai'20 Beach, available in any powder coat colour.
So I do just see here a question from an attendee. Do you do powder coated finishes for post stringers, stairs, handrails, etc.? Yes, most certainly. Whether that's just simply the balustrade and the handrail, or the complete stair and support structure, we can powder coat the lot if that's required.
Another question in regards asking, attendees asking, would we normally get involved in the stair design? And another question, do we provide the full design, engineering, supply and install? So the simple answer to that is yes, we do. We are heavily involved in the design of stairs, carrying the design through to manufacture and installation.
Good. Handrail barriers. So as shown there in that picture, it's a service stair at the Palms shopping centre in Christchurch. So handrail barriers are typically used in areas for maintenance purposes. So service stairs 95% of the time would have a handrail barrier. Top rail at 1100 millimetres high.
So a typical barrier handrail has 3 rails, including the top rail, and it has a maximum spacing between the rails of 450 mils. The stair here is at the ports of Auckland, quite an interesting project, providing access to the computerised container lifters.
Sorry, flicking through the slides here a bit quick. So this custom stair focus, this is a Cordis hotel here in Auckland. Toby, you were probably involved in this project from the start.
Thanks, Heinz. So it's on Simon Street in Auckland Central, providing egress from the top floor. So it's 11 stories, this hotel, 26 metres tall. As you can see there, it was craned in modules, and the installation from start to finish took 4 days. So each module was pre-manufactured, including the handrails, and craned to site. Transported to site as a module and then craned into place.
Really quick installation too, and that way metal was all installed on site within 4 days. And obviously, again, providing the full shop drawings and engineering, including producer statements. So that engineering, in this case, included the foundation design and the support or lateral support tie back to the building. So here's a bunch of things to consider, I guess, when selecting stairs for access. So whether this is, you know, should we use a ladder in this situation? Should we use stairs? So these are key things to consider. So frequency of access, how often is this area requiring access? Stairs are obviously suitable for carrying light loads, so they might, for example, tools, toolboxes, versus a ladder that's not. A stair is suitable for emergency evacuation, and obviously a lot less physical effort required to climb a stair versus a ladder, which therefore obviously means a lot safer means of access. So consider those points when weighing up whether it's a service stair, for example, or a ladder.
So this photo here is a common stair recently installed at Emirates Team New Zealand down at their waterfront in Auckland. providing access to the equipment, to the containers where they store product and carry out work. And the design, part of the design intent was that the stairs were able to be flat packed, deassembled, flat packed into a container. If for some unfortunate reason New Zealand lost the America's Cup, which hopefully doesn't happen.
Well, that ain't going to happen, all right?
Okay.
Right, some other important considerations. Uniform riser height and tread depth. So uniformity there is a really key thing. You were saying before, Toby, about when we go on site, sometimes you see the odd old stair on site, and what you do find is there's a lot of disparity between the tread heights. And our foot clearance when walking normally is around 5 to 10 mils, 10 mils max. So you can imagine if you've got a 5 mil disparity between riser heights, it makes it's a big trip hazard.
Yeah. Often what you find, and what I've found recently at an old winery, where you're climbing from a concrete stair onto a steel stair and there's a discrepancy, your foot is, and you get a slight trip happening, and you measure it 9 times out of 10, there's only a 5 mil difference, but just as a human being, common knowledge is you'll pick up that difference, and it's obviously quite dangerous.
Minimum height clearance there, 2.1 metres, so that's to give head clearance there. Open risers. Open risers can be on a secondary or service stair, and in some instances with a common stair as well.
Just a question there, someone's asked, where do we get the max pitch for the stair angle? Australia standards has different requirements, so obviously as we operate in Australia and New Zealand, our engineers and our designers will obviously apply the applicable codes. Thanks for that question. So accessible stairs, this one here is at Vitaco manufacturing plant in Auckland, recently installed, providing access for all the workers, office and warehouse workers, to their office block, to their changing rooms.
Just at this point, I'm just going to run a quick poll. Appreciate your participation here, and it's just around whether you want a copy of the recording sent through to you, and if you fire in your responses to that, that'll be much appreciated, and we can fire out a recording of this afterwards, which will include a copy of the slides as well.
So just pop your answers onto that. There's only 2 questions there.
So just while that's poll's running, fire egress stairs. So this often comes up, and it's a curly one. You know, there's lots of questions around fire escape stairs, and we often get asked what's the suitability of aluminium in a fire escape situation. So a couple of key points. You know, a fire escape must be kept clear of flammable material. So in essence, it should be a fire sterile area. So things like you see pot plants and junk is often kept in a fire escape, and that's a no-no. It should be kept clear, obviously. I'm going to finish off this poll now. Looks like we've got most participated. Thanks very much. The second point here, so when it's separated from the structure, from the building by distance, you know, maybe a 2-metre clearance there, obviously the fire escape is therefore not exposed to any fire in the building itself. This point here, aluminium has a critical radiant flux of less than 2.2 kilowatt per metre square. So therefore, an aluminium stair does not require underside protection. It can be, and we have done it using such as a fibre cement board. But in essence, an aluminium stair does not require underside protection. And aluminium is obviously non-combustible, and any fire escape must be of low flammability.
custom design, bespoke access, difficult spaces to reach, any such requirements, whether it's in your eyes it could be quite a tricky application. The team here at Monkeytoe obviously specialise in tricky applications, hard to reach areas. It's something we're very good at, something we're extremely experienced with. Feel free to reach out to us. About 80% of the projects we manufacture or we design have a bespoke element to it. So custom design is something that we are very interested in working with you on or helping you out with. And how can we assist you? Do you want to cover this one off, Hines?
Yep, so obviously we look after, as we mentioned, the complete design and engineering service. Obviously full shop drawings, producer statements, etc. for council consent. We can also get involved in concept design, so put forward some concepts and work with you to come up with an acceptable solution for your project. And whether that's, you know, visiting your office, meeting you on site, happy to do so. And also just working through different value engineering options, and whether that's a weight saving and not needing to load so much weight off the existing building structure, or savings in cost due to the lightweight structure.
There's a question there about the size of a project that is there a minimum size project? No, we're happy to look at any project, regardless of the size. I think one of our directors often uses the term small apples are sweet, so happy to taste the small apples and also happy to look at the big ones.
Thanks, Owen. Good question. So we've got a bunch of questions here we'll just fire through, and happy to take more, so keep sending them through, thanks. So what's this one here? Do you want to answer this first one here, Toby, about the compliancy?
Yeah, I think I may have covered that off earlier in regards to stair compliance, AS 1428, AS 1657. So regardless of, obviously a little bit dependent on what type of stair we're working on, it will comply with the relevant codes and the relevant standards.
Absolutely.
What type of aluminium do you use?
Good question. So we solely work with marine grade aluminium, and obviously that does a couple of things. It's perfectly suited to coastal areas and so on. But it also means it doesn't require a coating for its durability, longevity.
Absolutely.
But in saying that, as we mentioned earlier, it can be coated. And for aesthetics, obviously, in particular, powder coating in a particular colour is a common option. So it doesn't need powder coating, but certainly can be powder coated.
Another question, do we have galvanised stairs? The simple answer to that is our stairs are not galvanised. As Hines has just covered off, they are manufactured from marine grade high tensile aluminium, which is a superior product in more ways than one. The particular stair there shown on the Q&A screen, it's at Littleton Port down in the South Island, providing access to a container crane.
And what else did you answer that one before about when we get involved?
No.
So someone's asking here, when would you normally get involved in a stair design? So short answer to that is as early as possible, really. That's where we can add most value, and that's where we can offer, I guess, compliance advice and so on as well.
Exactly, yeah.
So feel free to reach out in early stages of a project, and happy to discuss options there.
I think one of the attendees is giving us a bit of a run for our money in regards to our spelling of Littleton Port. Thanks for that. To me, it looks pretty good, but it could be wrong. What is the slip resistant rating to your steps and checker plate? Obviously, it's a little bit dependent on what the requirement of the stair is. It meets the code requirements, put it that way. Have you ever designed a catwalk or service stair for indoor pools? So recently at Waikato Pools in North Taranaki, we installed some catwalk, including stair systems for the diving boards and associated areas. So yes, we can do that, and we have done that.
I'm also been involved in a project in Queenstown. Can't remember the pool project at this point, but it is in Queenstown, and that involved also some catwalk and access up to the mechanical equipment at a high area in the building. So that one, what else have we got here? How far does a fire stair need to be off the building if there is a sprinkler system in place? I can't answer that off the top of my head, but I can certainly come back to you with an answer. In short though, 2 metres is a standard distance off a building to avoid any additional, I guess, requirements to the stair.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's how I understand it.
What else? What types of tread pattern do you have? So we have a standard tread pattern, and it's probably a bit hard to see in that picture there, but it's a simple answer, an extruded aluminium plate with grooves in it for additional grip. But we also use a checker plate, a standard aluminium checker plate as well. I guess they are the 2 standard off-the-shelf options.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, the most common one is a tread, which ranges from 250 up to 350 depth, and it has a whole lot of little traction enhanced ribs on it. What kind of timeline would we need to allow to get building consent documentation from Monkeytoe for a typical accessible aluminium stair, say for a single story rise? Timeline, that's an interesting question. Generally for the design part of it, approximately 3 to 4 weeks, so that allows for design drawings to be signed off by the client. That's providing a producer statement, or New Zealand producer statement, a PS1 for consent.
Excellent. Are the treads welded or bolted? So welded in short, we can do a bolted option, but welded is the standard off-the-shelf option.
That's right, yep. So there's a question there, is Robert Bruce still available for South Island? Robert is possibly available. There's a new man in the South Island. Feel free to call any of us. I'm sure we'll be able to organise a site visit for one of you good men.
And do you provide on-site consultancy service? Yes, absolutely. Happy to meet on site or in the office, whatever that may be. What else we got here?
There's one question regarding approximate pricing, rough pricing based on specific designs. Obviously, happy to do that. At the end, we'll give you emails, flick us a message. Otherwise, we'll reach out to you, provide you with some budget costings based on some heights, some concepts.
So that one's done. Does your engineering team model in 3D and have the ability to share the 3D model for CAD purposes? Yes, absolutely. In-house, we don't use Revit as a system, but we do certainly use a 3D modelling system, and we can provide you the stair model to integrate into your designs. Hopefully that answers your question there. I'm just going to pull up this next poll here, and we'll just run this quickly as I continue just firing through or finishing these questions here. Just going to launch that now.
So the poll is, do you want either Heinz or myself to make contact with you after this webinar in the next day or two to answer any questions or discuss a particular project? So Thank you.
And what else we got? Oh, yeah, we've answered that pricing one. And we
Design, fabricate. Do we design, fabricate and install mechanical roof platforms? Yes, we do. That's something that we specialise in.
And Bruce, you've got a good question here around the fire rating of the landing. I don't have an exact answer to that. Can I come back to you on that one, Bruce? In short though, no, we do not require a fire rating to the underside of that landing. But again, that does depend on specifics of the projects. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, that's what I would have said. Thanks.
So Bruce, if you want to just tick that box here on the poll, happy to provide some specifics around that one.
So at the end of the webinar, our email addresses will be there.
I'll flip that through now. That's our email addresses there. Feel free to fire in any queries there. Question here, Queensland specific, can you provide Form 15 and Form 16 engineering certification in Queensland? We're Kiwis, so unfortunately I don't know that off the top of my head, but I'll get one of our Australian contacts to come back to you on that one, if that's okay.
If you can flick that through in an email, I think that's an anonymous attendee, but feel free to flick us an email. We're happy to answer that one.
Yep, excellent. Thanks for that.
And someone's asking, will you continue these webinars? I'm sure we will. We've had a pretty good response so far, so please email in your ideas, any other product information.
Yes, we do deal in the Northern Territory. We have our own installation crews dotted throughout Australia, and 90% of the time look after our own installations. In some of the more remote areas, we also use contractors. I don't know if you...
Yeah, well, we have a network of subcontractors which we work with. How does Monkeytoe compare with Safer? Interesting question. I guess Monkeytoe is its own company, quite different to Safer. What I know of Safer is they have a supply-only model. Monkeytoe provide the full design, manufacturing and installation, so it's a complete turnkey solution. Thanks for the question. Excellent.
By the looks, that's our questions finished by the looks, so any more, we'll wait on another minute or so and feel free to fire them through. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time today, really appreciate it, and some good questions come through there. Hopefully we've all learnt something, and feel free to be in touch. Thanks heaps, appreciate it.
Thanks very much for filling out those polls too. They're very important, especially with the information going forward. Thanks team, appreciate your attendance. Thanks Craig, appreciate your feedback.
Thanks Carlos, thanks Owen, appreciate that.
Cheers Devron.
Thanks Darwin.
Excellent Dallas.
Excellent.
Thank you Charlene.
And thanks Bruce.
Appreciate that.
Right, well, we'll wrap that up now. And as we said, please be in touch if there's anything further we can help you with. Thanks. Good
Cheers,
day.
Guys.
See ya.
Awesome. Fantastic. Excellent.